Here I am, Cabot, Arkansas. Honored, excited. So today is the day before the kids come back to school, and we have some 800 teachers from the whole district. It's a big community, a very prominent community, and a lot of families want to come here, suburb of Little Rock, Arkansas, because the school district is very well known for being high performing, great education, great teachers. Today's message is about suicide prevention. Unfortunately, this community is not unfamiliar with loss. My talk to them is going to be more than that. It's going to be about building relationships. Teens today don't care about titles and research, and my talk is getting the teachers to understand who we are, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. About building relationships with the kids so that they feel that this is a part of home and that these teachers and staff members are significant and trusted adults that they should never be afraid to reach out to. I'm honored and excited. Let's have a great day. How many teachers do we have in the room? All right, let's see if we have that excitement in February and March. I think a teacher is anyone in this room who in any way, shape, or form puts themselves in a position where their words or actions are seen or heard by a student. And as a result of being seen or heard by a student, we have the opportunity of touching hearts and changing lives and affecting their choices, their attitude, and their behavior for the rest of their lives. That's my definition of a teacher, and I like to start out that way because sometimes when you have a whole staff teacher session like this, sometimes we bring in maintenance and the cafeteria, even bus drivers and paraprofessionals. And I like to make sure that, to me, everyone is a teacher. So if I refer today to teacher, if you work with young people, I think you're a teacher. Welcome, and thank you for letting me start out this year. I am incredibly honored and privileged, blessed, thankful, excited to be here today. And I want to make sure you understand a couple things. My talk doesn't flow. So, matter of fact, I was writing in my journal this morning about, hey, I'm talking to teachers, and I want to make sure I cover this and cover that. And I left my journal in my suitcase in the car, so I really don't have, folks, speaking is hard for me. I struggle. Why are you late, sir? No, I'm kidding. But do you want coffee, water, or watch? All right, I'm starting to feel good. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. So my talk doesn't really flow. And the reason that is this is my 28th year in education. I've traveled a lot. And if my talk flowed, it would be the same point 1, A, B, C, 2, and I just can't do that. I do struggle with anxiety, so speaking is not easy for me. Folks, if I can't speak from my heart to yours, I can't do this. So if you're going to grade me based on the flow of my talk, just don't. Man, I'm just honored to be here. I was outside greeting some of you as you were coming in. Good morning, welcome. And I do that because the anxiety of standing up here waiting for someone to introduce me, I'm like, I'm not even comfortable behind a lectern. So I'm out there greeting people and good morning, welcome. And I do that because you ever been disappointed? Okay, don't answer. Being out there and being present, I'm able to say, good morning, welcome, good to see you. And it kind of makes me feel like, I get to be here today. And that's one of the feelings and thoughts that I want you as a teacher to have every single day. And so by standing out there, to me, it's about the objective, not the expectation. There's a gentleman that walked with a chair, and I said, sir, there's plenty of chairs. You're not going to need one of those. And he said to me, so do you know how long these things get? I told that gentleman just before I came on stage, sir, I'm going to make fun of you a little bit. And I love it, though, because, yeah, I get it. And folks, I know that many of you probably know that the theme today is suicide prevention. In my office, we work with probably 7 to 9 suicides a week. I want my talk with you today to not be about where we may have been, what we may have gone through. I want my talk to be more, where are we? Who are we? Where are we going, and how are we going to get there? My talk is going to be bigger than suicide prevention. I want my talk to be more about relationships, not just relationships with our kids, but our relationships with each other. Or maybe more importantly, our relationship with ourselves. About 7 years ago, I went through probably the hardest thing that I wish on nobody. I was married to the most beautiful woman in the world. We were married for 17 years. I remember when we first got engaged, I had come out of the Marine Corps, and I met this beautiful young lady, and we dated, and when we got engaged, I was out to lunch with her best friend, Mary. And I remember Mary said to me at lunch, she says, Jeff, you're taking the most beautiful woman off the market. And I said, I know. And I did. But about 7 years ago, we went through a divorce. It would have been easy for me to blame it on her, to blame it on family, blame it on money, blame it on this, blame it on that. And I think many of us do that. Or our kids in growing up. That's why we talked about personal responsibility, self-reflection, accountability. Let me ask you a question. Don't answer, just think it to yourself. Who's the hardest person to get to know? If you're like most audiences I speak to, you probably say, ourselves. Yeah. So in getting our kids to get to know who they are, I think it's also important that maybe we get to know who we are. 28 years doing this. Folks, I'm not here to tell you how to be a better teacher. I started my career as a teacher, coach, and I bet you probably it's still the same, that coaches are probably sitting in the back, and we had newspapers 25 years ago. We don't really have, we have our phone and USA Today, and I started back then. But after all these years speaking, I can't tell you, and I won't tell you how to be a better teacher. You could teach me that. But I want to invite you to really get to know who you are and being comfortable with who you are not. Because I think in building the relationship, there's 2 questions our kids ask every single day. And when we show up, we have to answer those 2 questions. Not just us and the kids, or the kids to us, but us peer to peer. Our husbands, our wives, our children. Coaches, athletes, coaches. Parents, the children, children, the parents. We have to show up every day and answer 2 questions. Question number 1, can I trust you? Question number 2, do you care about me? You got to answer those 2 questions. So when Marcia and I went through this divorce, I found myself one day looking in the mirror. And the mirror has never been a very favorable place for me. I think many of us can acknowledge that. We look in the mirror, I'm not that smart, I'm stupid, I'll never be able to, I'm not capable, I probably won't be their first choice, remember growing up, I'm not as strong as them, I'm not as fast as them, I'm not very smart, I'll never be able to make it, I'll never be able to amount to anything in my life. And so after the divorce, I found myself looking in the mirror, and ladies and gentlemen, if you don't like the reflection that looks back in the mirror, don't blame it on the mirror. It just means that you got to be willing to spend more time there. And that's a great place to start. I get asked quite a bit on social media. I get asked quite a bit on podcasts or the media. Hey, Jeff, you've been working with young people for a long time. If there's one thing that we can give young people, what do you think that is? I don't even hesitate. I say self-esteem. And I know we show up every day and we tell our kids, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful, you're capable, you can do this, you can do that. And the thing that struggles in my heart is, as much as we tell them they can do it, if they don't believe it themselves, our words don't mean anything. It doesn't mean that we should ever stop trying to build their self-esteem. And I don't know if it's us that does it. Parents, I think part of the problem in the world today is parents. I didn't say that out loud. But I think many of you would probably agree. Yeah. But teachers, these kids come in every day through, by the way, beautiful campus. As a guest coming in, first impression, wow. Let me tell you, I walk into the high school, and first impression, beautiful. And as I took a roundabout turn into the main office, I see these two ladies, and they're on their phone, they're doing something, they're not paying attention. And the moment I walked in, there's a lady, and she looks up and she says, "Good morning," with a smile. And right away it was like, bam, I'm like, I'm happy to be here. And I don't think our staff really understands in the office that it's their first impression to people, visitors that come in, that makes the difference. But it's also equally important that when our kids come into our classroom, are we present in standing outside? Welcome, good morning, how are you? You look nice today. Don't say that, that's a lawsuit. But I think just like inviting them in and making them feel comfortable, because that is the, I can trust you, you care about me. You notice. You see, here's the thing. You talk about suicide prevention. If our kids don't feel comfortable coming to you, you will never be able to help them, because we can't help what we don't know. So the first thing, relationships. And back to the mirror. I looked in the mirror and I thought to myself, what did I have to do with the failure of this marriage? And it was right then that it hit me. I realized then that it's my mental illness that was greater than I ever respected it to be. Bam, like that. That was it. As I stand before you, I'm proud to tell you that I'm diagnosed with major depression, bipolar type 2, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Some people, dude, people don't even talk about it yet. You say you're proud, why? Get to know who you are. Be comfortable with who you are not. And I remember I went home and I looked in the mirror and I thought to myself, well, how do you feel now? And I thought, that's the greatest weight that's been lifted off my shoulder. Because as I look back and I realized that this happened, or I had to go through this, or I did this, or that happened, I realized the piece of the situation that I played was as a result of me not recognizing my mental illness. Game changer. And so that was the point where I just started focusing on, you know what, I'm not going to worry about this, I'm not going to worry about that, but I'm going to worry about me in situations and get to know emotionally the certain triggers that are about to set me off. One of the greatest things that I've come to learn, like with bipolar, I wear a bracelet nearly every day that has the 4 T's. Take, time to think. I learned that in therapy. Take time to think. We as teachers, we tell our kids, don't react, just slow down, take a time out. Stop and think. Don't make decisions based on emotion. When you talk about suicide today, most kids, because of their inability to problem solve, their inability to cope with the situation, or we can turn it to isolation and disappointment, and they start to, well, I feel alone. I'm a burden. And then something can happen that will trigger an emotional response. And so to take time to think has become something that, you know what, don't reply to this email. Matter of fact, give it to the staff, let them do it. Have my staff talk to the clients because I'm better arriving on location and being like a dog that's let out of the cage. And afterwards, put me back in the cage. I've come to find where I work best, and it's okay. Take time to think. I think we should put that up on the board. Take time to think. I'll tell you, when I talked earlier about have you ever been disappointed? Okay. And so we say, yeah, I've been disappointed. But have you ever wondered where disappointment comes from? Well, yeah. And then I would say, well, where have you learned to come from? Well, I don't know. You've been disappointed, you wonder where it has come from, you may or may not have asked, but you haven't come up with an answer. I've come to learn that when you're willing to ask the question, the answer will arrive. But us, like our kids, you've got to be willing to ask. And so I'll tell you what I've come to learn. I think disappointment is a result of our expectations not being met. And so I've had to learn to get rid of all the expectations. Well, my parents were supposed to do this, and coaches were supposed to do this, and everyone's supposed to play. And teachers, you're supposed to be fun and entertaining and teach, but in a way that I understand. And you're not supposed to give homework, and our husbands this, and our wives this, and our children this. And when expectations aren't met, we become disappointed. One of the reasons why I was standing out there this morning is because I've learned to replace the expectation with appreciation. And so instead of focusing on the lights or the sound, or the fact that you better pay attention, and your phone's better, and that has nothing to do with the phone. Listen, I get it, I don't care. But the old bipolar Jeff would be like, whose phone is that? Hey, who? Son of a... But I've learned to appreciate the fact that... Hi. Oh, you want a picture? Hey man, the older you get, the less you get to pose. And, that's another thing. You know something? To validate you every day, you're going to be greatly disappointed. You know, ladies and gentlemen, you got to validate yourself. And I think we need to teach our kids that they have to wake up and stop waiting for us. Listen, as teachers, I want you to validate them every day. I want you to, hey, I'm proud of you. Great job. Great effort. But you know what? We have 120, 34. I get it. And so we're busy. We don't always get the time. We forget it's okay. Parents, the same thing. We need to teach our kids to validate ourselves. And so I stand out there just with appreciation, thinking to myself, I get to be influential, and maybe my words will be bigger than just this time this morning. The kids come in today. I get to greet teachers as they're coming in, and yeah. I also learned to replace the expectation with the objective. And that's something we want our kids to understand, but we have to understand it too. Hey, what time do we got to be here? Okay, did I get here early? Did I get here on time? Am I prepared? Am I ready? For me, it's like, hey, where do I got to be? Monday, I got to be outside Little Rock, Arkansas. Did I fly in early enough on Sunday? Did I get a good dinner? Did I get a good night's sleep? Am I prepared? Did I show up on time? What time do I speak? What time? How much time do I have? What's the schedule look like? So the objective, if you focus on the objective, not the expectation, you'll never be disappointed because you are now in charge. And you won't be disappointed. When I speak to high school students, I'll always come off the stage and I'll find a student, I'll connect, and I'll go to a student, I'll say, hey, what's your name? And hi, I'm Jeff, nice to meet you. I'll say, can I ask you a question? Yeah. I would never want to embarrass you or make you feel awkward, or have you ever looked in the mirror? Oh, yeah. Has the mirror not ever been very favorable to you? Yeah. And I'll ask you, as a student, teenager today, does our future and who we are, where we might want to go to school, what we might want to do, does that sometimes bring anxiety and stress, and that we're supposed to have it figured out? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. So let me ask you a question. Tonight, you go home and 11 o'clock at night and you're tired, so you walk into your bedroom, you put on your pajamas, and you're getting ready for bed. And then you walk across the hall into the bathroom, and you open the bathroom door, and you walk up to the counter, the mirror, and you take toothpaste, you put in your toothbrush, and you look in the mirror, and the reflection looks back as you're brushing your teeth. Here's my question. Do you see on the inside a beautiful person the way we see you on the outside? And I bet you if I spent time with every single one of you as adults in an hour in counseling and therapy, just chatting, and I were to ask you that question the way I do with kids, as adults, we've kind of grown, we've become more comfortable. But when I ask that to kids, probably 99% of them say, no. And I hate that question. I hate the question because it exposes the truth. But if the truth isn't exposed, we don't grow. Well, Jeff, what does that have to do with me being a teacher? You're more than a teacher. You're the significant, trusted adult in their lives that many of them do not have when they leave school. And I know some of you might say, hey, Jeff, listen, I teach math or Spanish or science. I'm not comfortable getting to know our kids. That's fine. And I respect that. And some of you really cherish that relationship, getting to know your kids on a deeper level. And it breaks your heart. I want to tell you something. With what we may have been through, you can be compassionate and empathetic towards our kids. But ladies and gentlemen, don't own the darkness. You can't. It'll emotionally destroy you. I hate the question. It exposes the truth, but I love the question because I've come to realize that if the truth is not exposed, we can't grow. And if we can get our kids to recognize and be open to the truth, then, ladies and gentlemen, you've touched the heart. And when you touch the heart, the mind will follow. And understand, as a teacher, not everyone's going to like you. Not even your peers. Not even your husband. Your kids, your wife. I know. But I've learned to become okay with it because I've become okay with me. I was talking to Officer Thomas in the back, and as I came in, I saw this handsome-looking man in uniform, and I just want to say, sir, thank you for your service. I think we've lost a lot of respect in the world. I think we've lost respect for our teachers. I think we've lost respect for our administration. I think we've lost respect for law enforcement, our military. That's my opinion. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But so I like to just, hey, thank you for your service. And we got to talking, and Officer Thomas, thank you for inspiring me. We make a difference every single day. I was talking to Officer Thomas, and he was talking about like being present. Many years ago, I was getting frustrated. I started not liking myself. I was being ungrateful. Probably traveling too much, not taking care of myself, and I started coming in with these expectations. And I remember sharing this with someone, and that person said, well, hey, Jeff, if you have a book by Rhonda Byrne, The Secret. No? I was, well, maybe you should read that. Okay. So I picked up this book called The Secret. I started reading, okay, that's good. I remember I got to this part where it talked about saying thank you. So say thank you 25 times a day. And so I started saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for letting me be here. Oh, thank you for the sound of the lights, this auditorium. I get to come to Cabot, Arkansas. And you might think, well, what does that have to do with anything? It changes you. And so I've learned to just say thank you. And the moment I started doing that, everything started to change. I'm more present, I'm more engaged. And then I started doing something very simple. Before every talk, I would make sure I arrived early. That's kind of in a polite way, I'm trying to say, don't teach by your contract. Some of you understand that. Listen, I'm going to throw it out there. I don't want to be controversial, but I think if you teach by a contract, you're probably not in the right profession. I think we need to show up a little bit early, welcome our kids with a smile, prepare yourself before they come in, and when they do come in, I'd love to see teachers outside welcoming them off the bus or coming in the halls, good morning, how are you? Maybe playing some music, classical music, and maybe Fridays play their music. You create the culture and the climate of a building. You individually. And you know what leadership is? Leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. And so when we focus just on ourselves, yeah, be selfish. You take care of you. Your influence on your peers kind of happens. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about that. And so part of the objective. One of the things that I do every morning is and I feel like I'm in the South, I'll just, listen, I'm not a religious man, I'm a spiritual man. And I got to talk to Officer Thomas about it, and I asked him, he talked about who he is and his relationship with a higher power. And I started to get inspired, and I said to him, he looks like a younger man. I said, sir, I don't know how old you are, but let me ask you this question. Your relationship, has that changed as you've gotten older? And he smiled and says, yeah. And I smiled and I thought, yeah. I show up early every morning. And one of the first things I have learned to do is I go take a time out and I pray. And it's not just, I don't know where you are with it, but it's not just about praying to my higher power, and it is my higher power, it is God, but sometimes we can just pray to center ourselves, to just let the outside noise go, to be present in what I get to do, where I am, my impact, my influence. And I noticed that when I started doing that, and then I come out here, I don't care anymore. It's not that I don't care, But I've become comfortable with me. I've kind of let it go to someone who is going to be the vehicle for me and I just, be present, be engaged, be thankful for the opportunity. And what matters to me today is more the teachable moment. It's more the impact through the words and me being present. You're going to trust and you're going to respect and know that I care. That to me has become more important than caring about was I liked as a teacher or a speaker or... I'm hesitant to tell you this story because it's slightly inappropriate, but you can't make it up. Oh, you like that? Okay. Last year, I had to fly from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That's why I was flying from there. I had to go to Buffalo, New York to do one of these talk thingies. I do these a lot. And so go from Myrtle Beach, you got to go to Charlotte, kind of like if you go from Little Rock, whatever. Okay, you understand. And I have to change planes. Never forget. I get off the plane, I'm walking through the airport, and right away it occurred to me, I got to pee so bad. That's the inappropriate part. Many people get offended by the word pee. Some people have the audacity to come to me after and tell me they're offended, thinking I care. I just realized I've grown as a person. I'm comfortable telling you I don't care. I don't need to be validated anymore. And so people sometimes say, oh, Mr. Yalden, it's probably more appropriate that you use the word urinate. Now, I'm just saying, young people today don't care about titles, testimonies, research. The more transparent, the more honest, the more real you are. You got to be appropriate, still balance the boundaries. But the more they connect with you, the easier the relationships. You've touched the heart, the mind follows. And so I had to just go to the bathroom so bad. And so I find the men's room, I walk in the men's room, and right away, there's nobody in there. I'm thinking to myself, is it open? Closed? I don't know. I didn't care. I'm like, I got to go. Have you ever had to go so bad that when you are going, you're finally like... Ladies, it's a little different for you. You're kind of like... thought that as we're talking about suicide prevention, we can laugh. Not funny, I know. And so I walk into the very far urinal. I walk in the bathroom, I walk up to the very far urinal. There must have been like 11 of them. You ever notice there's always an odd number? There is. And so I walk up to the urinal and I'm urinating. And I remember thinking to myself, this is nice. It's like I'm home. I could pee by myself. And, all of a sudden, out of that peripheral vision, this older gentleman walks in. And I remember right then, I'm like, dude, really? And he's getting closer, I notice. I know, I was there. He walks up to the urinal right next to mine. Like, you don't do that. Like, the dude totally breaks bro code. And right away, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow. Then he looks at me. And he says to me, I would never hire you. Now, folks, you have to understand, I don't normally get dressed up, but the older I get and the more I'm doing adults and teachers and mental health, I've decided to just bring sexy back. And so... Folks, listen again. If you don't tell yourself you're sexy, ain't no one else gonna. That's awkward. Okay. So I just if I'm not wearing the suit, coat, tie, and a couple coaches out there, I love it. I was a coach, and I walk up. Oh, you guys must be the coaches while you guys are coming in. One of the guys is like, yeah, and he made some comment. We don't have the courage to put on a pink bow tie. And I'm like, you're funny. Yeah. I don't normally dress up like this because it's uncomfortable to me. And as a man that lives with mental illness, I've learned that if I can't be comfortable, it's hard for me to be present. But I've also learned not to make excuses anymore. You're not a victim. And sometimes we have to be comfortable being uncomfortable in order to grow. So without this, I have tattoos I have my Marine Corps arm, I have old school Americana. So when the guy looked at me, he was judging me. And did I tell you that I have bipolar type 2? I did, good. Good, because that's important at this moment. See, bipolar type 2 for me is kind of like the bipolar that something will happen, it triggers an emotion, and I'm going to react. So many of you probably have children, teenagers. Imagine you go home and your older teenager gets hit by younger teenager. What does older teenager do? Jacks up younger child. And then what are you doing? Mom, he hit me first. And you're like, well, you're the older sibling, you know better. He said, this is fair. That's called reacting. We know that when we react based on emotion, we find ourselves in trouble, we regret what we did. Hence I wear the take time to. I deserve an Emmy for how I handled this situation. The gentleman looks at me and says, I would never hire you. Right away, I'm like, and I remember thinking to myself, just ignore him. This tested my bipolar. Ignore him. But folks, I wanted to. Very similar to the moments where you want to jack up one of your students. Just for the record, don't do that. I wanted so bad. I fought so hard. I wanted to step off that urinal. I wanted to yogi windmill scissor kick him in the mouth. But had I done that, I realized at that very moment that I would have probably urinated on him. I would have urinated on me. I would have urinated. They would have called hazmat, shut down the terminal. There would have been consequences, great ones. I'm so proud of the growth. You see, when you own it, you grow, you don't care, you're more focused on, I want to someday be the man that I aspire to be. And in growing and having that as a goal, I've come to realize it's okay to ask the question. When you ask the question, the answer shall come. I ignored him. I go over to the sink and I'm washing my hands because you should do that. When said weird guy comes over and he's washing his hands and he looks at me again and he says to me, your tattoos are very unprofessional. I was like, no, you don't. You don't know me. I ignored him again. And I walked away. And so a year later, I'm sharing you this slightly inappropriate story because I'll tell you what I love about it. I love that this gentleman is really no different than many of us. We judge people based on the 5%, the very little that we think we know about them. You see, that gentleman didn't know me, didn't know what I do. He doesn't know my heart, doesn't know my intentions. He doesn't know who I am, but he's judging me. And that's his issue, not mine. But as a man that has become comfortable living as a man that lives with mental illness, I've come to realize this. Life is just very simply one big giant quilt. All of us, different colors, shapes, sizes, pieces, fabrics, all woven together to make one. As we come here, we're one starting this year for our kids. Now, self-esteem, self-value, I think the question becomes, how do I fit to be a part of this team, the climate, the culture, our community? Now, imagine taking that personal feelings, how do I, and sharing that with all of our kids. That's the impact we have every day. I want to thank you for being a teacher. Ladies and gentlemen, I've retired, many of you. I was always a good kid, but I was a challenging kid. My teachers all liked me, but I learned differently. Yes, I grew up with a learning disability. I was in the resource room. I had ADD, ABC, MOUSE, and OBGY. Yes, I had it, but again, I don't think that's you're not a victim. And when I was young, I was the victim. And so I took it out on you. Who do we take out our anger and emotions on mostly? Those we love and care about. I had this one teacher, her name was Miss Slavin. Her quite well. She was the resource room teacher and married to my basketball coach, Mr. Slavin. Grew up in Long Island, New York, and 1,600 kids in our school. You guys are a big district. And I remember walking down the main hallway, and to go to the resource room, you had to take a left down the very dark corridor next to the auditorium. And that hallway corridor, that's where all the special kids would go. And I'd get up there, and 5 of us, Miss Slavin, Miss Kaczynski, and 5 of us. And our teachers, Miss Slavin, Miss Kaczynski, were so welcoming and loving and kind. I just didn't appreciate it then. Or more of it was the stigma of having to go to the resource room and the feeling that I'm not as smart as others. And so as hard as you tried, I rejected you. Shut up, you're stupid. I don't want to be here. Leave me alone. You're an idiot. Oh no, shoot, I have to be nice because of Coach. Yeah, I don't understand. I don't want to understand. April this year. I'm up at a family's Long Island 90th birthday party, cousins' birthdays, and all wrapped in. And so after the party, my cousin Michael, who's a teacher, and his wife Kelly, who's a guidance counselor, says to me, hey, we're going to watch the game, Duke and University of Central Florida. You want to come over for some burgers? And I had to be in New Jersey the next day. Yeah, why not? I'll just come on over. I could leave late. It's 2 hours, not a problem. And so I get there, and my cousin Michael says to me, hey, Kevin is coming over. Kevin Slavin. I know Kevin. That's Miss Slavin, Mr. Slavin's son. He was 2 years behind me. He's now a high school principal. And Michael says, hey, Kevin's going to come over. They've been best friends, college roommates. Yeah, oh, that's great, man. Look forward to seeing him. We're watching the game. It hit me like that. Kevin, Miss Slavin passed away about 10 years ago of brain cancer. And I remember I said to Kevin, it was about halftime, I said, hey, Kevin, can I talk to you? Yeah. I go in the dining room, we sit down, and I said, Kevin, Kevin, I'm sorry about your mom. Because Kevin, she was amazing, and I never got to say thank you for how hard she worked to break the walls and to encourage. And he says, Jeff, you know my parents love you. My mom loved you. She understood. I said, Kevin, listen, I just want to thank you. I didn't get to say thank you to your mom. We kind of hugged, and what's important to you? Titles or testimonies? Titles, testimonies. Titles come and go. Testimonies are forever. I have a couple other teachers and stories that I'm not going to bother you with, but as I look back on my life, the people that made the most significant difference in my life are you teachers and coaches. Folks, I'm not a smart man. I ended up graduating high school 128 out of 133 students. I was rejected by 16 of the 19 colleges that I applied to. I grew up with a learning disability, a stutter, twitch. On the night that I graduated from high school, my parents kicked me out of the house. I know many of us, why would parents do that? Well, as I look back on my life, you know what I probably would have kicked me out too. And I'll tell you why. 3 things I think matter in our classroom and on school grounds. 3 things I think are important that we could teach our kids. Your attitude, your choices, and your behavior. That's it. Don't complicate it. If they can remember to take time to, your attitude matters, your choices matter, and your behavior matters. That is where I went wrong. And a lot of it had to do with self-esteem. And so as my parents kicked me out of the house, I found myself walking the streets of New York with a chip on my shoulder. Every one of us knows one of our students, one of our athletes. They walk around, they have a chip on their shoulder. But understand, as you look to judge them, let's realize that something is broken. And our job is less judging, more trying to find out what is broken. And if we can't connect with them, then we're not doing our job as a teacher to teach, to inspire, to motivate, to help. And yes, we're going to push you away. I'll tell you why, because this is important. You know why young people push away our teachers and our counselors and our therapists? We don't want therapists, or we push away our coaches. I'll tell you, because we're afraid to burden you with our problems. We're afraid that you're going to judge us, that you're not going to validate us. We're afraid that you're going to try and fix it. I think it's important to understand that when we're working with our young people in mental health, thoughts are thoughts. Like an arm is an arm, a leg is a leg. Thoughts are thoughts. But feelings. If we can't get each other, our kids, to share their feelings, then we're not doing the job that we really should be doing. Let me share with you this. I know we've had some tough times in our community, I'm sorry. And as we start to move on, we say to our friends that may have been close to one of these kids or a family member, hey, how you doing? And the typical response is, I'm good. I'm fine. What does that mean? It means I'm fine, leave me alone, I don't want to talk about it. I have a better question that I want to encourage you to start asking. hey man, how's your heart? How's your heart? That's a deep question that is much more difficult to avoid, and right away it's like, oh, you care. Well, yeah, I care. Imagine a student comes in, maybe they had just lost a family member, aunt, uncle, grandparent, and you notice that they're not really present. I want to invite you to remember what is called the 2x10 rule. You take 10 kids, quarter, semester, maybe the year, whatever, and you try every day to spend 2 minutes with those kids. 10 kids, 2 minutes a day, whatever you want to do, a week, but you're connecting with them on a deeper level. You do it every quarter, you find 10 kids the second quarter. If you're more comfortable with the semester, you're connecting with kids differently. Try that. Those kids feel it. You know the greatest suicide percentage today is white males 35 to 50 years old. I'll tell you why. Dr. Alex Crosby, a friend of mine in Atlanta, Georgia, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. We were in Los Angeles, 5 months ago, talking at this big mental health conference, and he talked about this. And so we're driving back to the airport in the same limo, and I said to him, I said, so Dr. Crosby, basically what you're saying is this, and if we do this, he says, yeah, precisely. Here's what he said, 35 to 50 years old, here's why. Because when they researched the brain after their death, they came to realize the trauma from their childhood, and as men, suck it up, be a man, work through it. You don't show your emotions, toughen up. And so all that has led to, I'm going to be man, I'm not supposed to, I'm going to be tough, it's going to be okay, my dad says. And then as you go through life, you get greater responsibility, more challenges, but we don't have the coping skills, we don't have the problem-solving skills. We talk about resiliency and grit, and we get to 35, 40, and we're married, and all these obligations and responsibilities, but I can't handle with it. If we don't get our kids to be comfortable talking about their feelings now, then later, we're teachers. We touch the heart, the mind follows. If they trust you and know that you care, how's your heart? Oh, Jeff, as teachers, we don't have time. I am one of those students of yours that you made a significant difference in my life by caring about me more than you cared about the curriculum. I want you to teach. This is, I don't know what your superintendent would say, and frankly, I don't really care because I don't live here and I get to leave. I know testing is important. I say this, Jeff, think before you speak. You make a difference every day in the relationship you have, and I think when you touch the heart, the mind will follow, will be more present in the curriculum stuff. I'm very proud of how I said that. Speaking of that grace, when I went through the divorce, I met a lady and I was dating her, and I remember one day she said to me, she says, you know, Jeff, I can't wait till you become the man that you want to be. And I remember thinking, what does that mean? And again, this is about the time when I was getting real comfortable with the fact that I have mental illness. And I remember just ask the question, grow. Someday I want to aspire to be this man, and I'm going to work towards it. I want to be healthy, and I don't want my emotions to own me. I want to own my emotions. I remember years ago I was speaking about 800 middle school kids. And I remember there's this one kid in the audience, and he's shining a laser at me. Bipolar Jeffrey appeared. And I stopped and I said to him, I said, what are you, stupid? No. Apparently I offended the kid, and other kids, I offended them too, and they were upset that I called the kid stupid, and I did. Now administration's upset, teachers, oh my. I'm the adult, as you are. You know better. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I'm apologizing. I'm wrong. Come to find out, this young boy, 8th grader, had autism. I have a nephew who has autism. I'm not making what he did. It's okay then. But a week later, I'm on the phone with Dad. I'm apologizing. I'll do anything. I'm sorry. And so Dad says to me, Mr. Yalden, I accept your apologies. But Mr. Yalden, I hope that someday you can learn to become a man of grace. And I remember I got off the phone and I thought, okay. I never knew what grace was. I always thought it was some biblical term. On the other side of my bracelet is the word grace. I want to share with you what I've come to learn by asking the question. The answer has appeared. Here's the word grace to me. Grace is when you live with that love and compassion in your heart, and you combine that with the power and strength of your belly. And so every day when you combine the two, I think grace is the way you talk. I think it's the way you act. It's the way you speak. I think grace is about forgiveness. Grace is about acceptance. I think grace is about being non-judgmental. And I've come to learn that when I pray, I just ask, just be grateful in how you flow through the day. Be graceful in the opportunity. Be graceful in being present. Grace. So I'm walking the streets of New York with that chip on my shoulder. And for many years, pushing away the messengers. We do that. I was broken. I'm 18 years old. My self-esteem was so low that I honestly thought that if I could just meet a girl and marry her, that maybe she would take care of me. So I met a girl. She was broken. I was broken. And it's not like two brokens make a positive. It's two brokens make a lot of, I'm the victim, everyone else is wrong, we're right. So at 18 years old, we bring a child into the world at 19. I'm a child bringing in a child. I couldn't even babysit a cactus. And yet people were still trying to help me. Hey, Jeff, listen, you don't have to do this. You can think about this. Let's not make extreme decisions that we might regret later. Let's stop and think. You don't have to decide right now. I'm like, no, I'm a man, yo. You don't understand. And here I am as a young, immature 19-year-old telling you who has wisdom and experience that you don't understand. Right away, you know, whoa, I'm okay. I didn't know what to do. I had the right intentions, but I wasn't listening. I joined the Marine Corps. At 20 years old, folks, life happens. I don't have to tell you this, you know. But our kids need to know, and they can only know through our stories that we share with them. Life happens like that. I was 20 years old. They sent me to the Gulf War. I was there for 2 weeks. One night, 3 o'clock in the morning, 40 Marines were on patrol. And we're walking real slow. Just before 3 o'clock in the morning, a roadside bomb goes off. 2 Marines were killed. I wasn't ready for that. On February 26, 1992, I was stationed in Jacksonville, Florida, Cecil Field Naval Air Station. I know we're a military community. At 7:30 in the morning, all the Marines are lined up at the armory, and they're getting their weapons. And so as one of the NCOs, I'm walking down my barracks. Gentlemen, let's go. Let's grab your weapons. Get out there. Don't be late. We have inspection, 8 a.m., formation. Don't be late. Let's go. It was the third door, left-hand side. One of my Marines, PFC Eisenberg, that was his name. The door slightly cracked. I remember it like it was yesterday. I walk in. and maybe 7 feet away. A young man sitting in a chair with the chair on either side of him, and he looked at me with this blank stare. It was piercing. And I looked at him and I said, "Eisner, let's go, let's get out there." And he says to me, "Corporal Yalden, nobody cares about me." And I looked at him and I said, "I care about you." As he sat in the chair, he lifts the 9mm off of his lap, and he slowly starts bringing it up to his chin. And as he looked at me in my eyes, I looked at him in his eyes. He said, "Maybe you're the only one." And he pulled the trigger. I live with that every day. Every day I hear the sound of a gunshot. You smell it, you taste it, you see it. This happened at 7:38 in the morning. They didn't let me leave till 9 p.m. that night. And for so many years, it was my fault. I could have said something. I was the last one to hear. I was the last one to see him. I should have known what to do. I should have known he was hurting. You can't help if you don't know. You know, one of the things I'm most proud of in my adult life, I've never been afraid to ask for help. My therapist, Stacy, tells me I'm her favorite client. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Yeah. I remember about 6 months ago, she said to me, this surprise. She says, "Jeff, I think you have a problem with anger." It pissed me off. I almost punched her. But I said to her, because I'm continuing to want to grow and learn and get to know me. I said, "Stacey, why do you think I have a problem with anger? I don't yell, scream." So we started talking about this thing called anger distortions. And I started to look at it and I said, "Then everybody has a problem with anger." And she said, "Yeah, I agree. It's how we deal with it." So like at the urinal, this guy has an issue with me, and I learned that anger is like peeing your pants. Everyone can see it, but only you can feel it. So with this situation, the young man says, "Maybe you're the only one." I come to learn that maybe when our day is done and we all go about, one or two, you might come up, "Hey, Jeff, thank you for serving our country. Jeff, thanks for speaking. That was very different than when I thought." You'll notice I will stop and I will look you in the eyes and I will say, "Thank you for listening." Because I never want someone to walk away from me thinking that I didn't care about them. I want your kids every day to walk away from you knowing that they can trust you and that you care about them. But they will only know that and recognize that if they sense that you are present and you are appreciative in this relationship. And I've also learned not to use being a man of mental illness as an excuse. I'm not a victim. And I think we also need to understand ourselves. Hey, listen, I want to be sensitive about this. I don't know what you have been through. And I am sorry for what, personally and professionally. It may not have been your fault, but it doesn't change. It's not now your responsibility. Same thing for our kids. Whatever you've been through, had to go through, that doesn't mean that that's the way your life is going to be. You've got to change the attitude, the choices, the behavior, the mindset. I was talking to someone this morning, we're talking about depression. Hey, listen, motion changes emotion. It is hard to wake up sometimes. If I don't do my self-care in the morning, I don't know if I'm healthy sometimes to be talking to people. I wake up every morning, I recognize I need to. Wake up at 5 a.m. every day. And the first thing I do is I wake up and I breathe. And some of you might, Jeff, we all breathe. There's a certain way of breathing, and in yoga they call the Njaya breath, where you inhale through your nose, you exhale through your nose. Inhale peace, exhale love. I want to inhale the peace in the world. I want to exhale the love that I have in my heart. And that's the mantra that I use. Or inhale, I know I'm inhaling. Exhale, I know I'm exhaling. Because I just want to be present. I might do that for a couple minutes. And then I might journal. And then I might pray. I'll go exercise. That is my self-care. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want the day to own me, my emotions. I want to do the work so that I can own the day. Imagine, you wake up and your emotions on a scale of 0 to 10, you ask kids today, I'll ask kids, 1 to 10, 10 being high, 1 being low, most of them are like 7, 8, 9. Some of us wake up 7, 8, 9. How present are you as a teacher, so incredibly influential in the relationship with your kids and peers every day, if you're at a 7, 8, 9? Then all of a sudden something happens and you're like, I've had enough. How present would I be here today if I showed up with all the outside noise in my heart and on my mind, and I'm at a 7, 8, 9? So that's why I do the pre-morning routine, because I want to be at a 2 or 3. So if something happens that triggers an emotion, I'm at maybe a 4 or 5, and I can still take time to think. I can go take a time out. Breathe. Let it go. You're the adult. You are responsible. How about if we just... You want to change the climate of your school? And maybe you do it. What if in the morning some of our teachers were out there with music, or between the hall we're playing classical music, or we're sitting out in front of the classroom? Or what about like before test, we learn to just, okay class, everyone, let's take everything off the desk and just, we turn down the lights and, listen, I just want you to close your eyes and just breathe. And maybe you teach them the inhale for a count of 4, exhale for... You do it for 2 minutes. And some kids, when you start, be like, oh, this is stupid. Some of you are like, that's weird to me. Google it. Have one of your counselors teach you how to teach it to them. And just close the lights and close your eyes. And after 2 or 3 minutes, the kids will be like... You might have to wake up Johnny. Johnny, wake up. Johnny, wake up. Huh? And that is a sign that our children are not getting enough sleep. As a matter of fact, speaking of sleep, I know I'm all over. I think kids need 3 things. 3 things our kids need. I'll change their life right now. Number 1, they need sleep. Young people need 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep a night. And if your kid's ugly, they need more. Now, hey, I'm not saying your kid's ugly, but maybe they have an ugly attitude. They come into school and you're like, oh, good morning, Emily. She's like, oh, really? Shut up forever. So maybe an ugly attitude, because I'll tell you, you know what our kids are doing. If our kids spend more than 4 or 5 hours a day on their smartphone devices, they're 70% more likely to have major depression in life. Our kids go to bed, they say on average, when they go to bed, they're on Instagram or Snapface for at least 2 hours before going to bed. And so here's what happens. They get on their phone and they're like, OMG, he said what? Oh, SMH, he did? Oh, it's going down tomorrow. Group text, don't miss school, it's going down. Ha ha ha. And all of a sudden that 8
hours is broken up into maybe 4 hours of sleep that they may have gotten. And so they have a bad attitude, they wake up and everything stinks. School stinks, you stink, their friends stink. How was school today, honey? They're stupid. Well, school's stupid, or maybe their attitude needs to be adjusted. Number one, I think sleep. Let's really encourage sleep. Put the phone down, put it away. Number two, nutrition. I love these parents that think that their child is going to be the next Division I scholarship athlete, and as they run and your kid probably won't, your kid probably really sucks, but your self-esteem as you're trying to live over through your kid, you have issues, okay? And I'm not saying that maybe you should talk to someone, but you probably should, whatever. And so you run your kid all over the Southeast, participating in AAU this, summer this, that, and yet we go to McDonald's every day for something to eat. Weird to me. Okay, so nutrition, less carbs, more protein, less sugary drinks, more water. Oh, difference maker. You know who's best friends? Sugar and depression. They hang out. And so if we can eliminate, you see, mental health, maybe, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in medication and doctors over medication. Okay, well then ask the question, maybe start with food, maybe start with exercise, some of the simple things, maybe you can narrow it down. The other thing, get involved. Do you know, statistically, our kids care more about being involved than they do about winning and losing? I think it's the parents that are more concerned about winning and losing than the kids are. And so if we can get our kids to put the phone down a little bit, I don't even, most of the time, turn my phone on to like 11 a.m. Because the moment you get up and you're on it, all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late. Like an hour just went by like that. There's something in the phone called dopamine. It's called the dopamine effect. And for the kids, they don't understand. Part of the problem is we've given them this device that emotionally they are not mature enough to understand the consequences of what this does. And so we get on the phone and all of a sudden it's like SMH and OMG, I want more, I want more, I want more. And one of the arguments I get in education is, so Jeff, I mean, we use the phones in the classroom sometimes, and we're giving kids, iPods and Chromebooks, so aren't we part of the problem too? Yeah, no. And I'll tell you why. No kid goes home and writes a paper on their Chromebook about Shakespeare, and they get the same dopamine effect that they do from Snapface or Insta. And again, then I also think it's a parent's responsibility. If your kid is using it too much and you see a behavior, then be a parent and do something. But parents today are having to parent on the back end when they should be parenting on the front end. And if we would learn to parent on the front end, we wouldn't have to be reacting on the back end. And I think that's part of the relationship that we as teachers should have with the parents. Let's be positive twice as much as we are negative, but when you see an issue that needs to be addressed, I think we have to address that. Okay, so let me go back to, I'm in the Marine Corps, I went through this. I'm not a victim, although I wish I knew half of this then that I know now. But maybe I had to go through some of this. Maybe you had to go through some of what you went through to be the person that you are today. So let our kids know that what they go through, not your fault, our responsibility. I tell my kids, here's your responsibility. You wake up, you get up, you dress up, and you show up. That's half the battle. Many of our kids can't do that right. We show up late. Sir? Never mind, I'm sorry. We show up late, we don't show up on time, we're not prepared. The contract, I got to be here at X amount. Oh, we're here at X amount. Then we get our coffee. No, that doesn't make sense to me. Well, the contract says that my time is done at 3:15. At 3:14, you're at the door packed, ready to go. Listen, I think some things are basically very simple. You wake up, you get up, you dress up, half the battle. The other half of the battle, your attitude, your choices, your behavior. And then the other half is when you walk out the door, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, you clap your hands, you do your dance, and you own the day. I met a human resources consultant about 3 weeks ago at the airport. I'm getting ready to go to Pennsylvania to speak to these student leaders. And I don't talk in the airport. Some people want to have small talk. I don't even, like the older I get, the more I've come to learn who I am. I don't even like people. Don't tell me I'm the only one. I'm at the airport, this guy comes up to me and he says to me, "Nice tats." "Oh, thanks." "Where'd you get them?" "Boston." "I've got tats." "That's nice." "Where are you going?" "Pennsylvania." "You ride?" "Yeah." Now he's talking my language. We start talking about golf. "All right, let's talk, bro." I found out that he's a human resources consultant for programs like, or corporations like Volvo and Mercedes-Benz. And it clicked that I'm going to speak to these student leaders in Pennsylvania Free Enterprise Week about business and finance and marketing and branding. And I thought, I'm going to ask, "Sir," I said to him, I said, "Sir, I'm going to talk to these student leaders, juniors and seniors in high school. Listen, being human resources and working with these companies, if you were going to talk to them, what would you say?" And so I thought he'd probably tell me something about the University of Pennsylvania Business School, the Wharton Business School of Business, or whatever. And he says this to me. I'd probably tell him 3 things. I'd tell him to wake up on time. I'd tell him to show up. And I would tell him to be hungry to learn. And I was like, that's it? Isn't that like common? I have 4 kids that I like most of the time. All of them are very different. But I want to tell you about the oldest boy. I got 2 girls. Biologically, they're mine. I did the work. They showed up in the world. Okay. I have 2 boys that they're kind of mine. Let me explain. I inherited them. They showed up like cats one day. I want to tell you about Devin real quick. Devin is... I'm fascinated by the questions that our kids are asking today. Kids want to know why. Like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to work so hard to get a job, to pay bills, to go to work, to pay more bills? Why? I'll never forget Devin and we're on the beach. Devin is a little bit strange. He graduated from high school, number 2 in his class from Hilton Head Prep, South Carolina. He got a full academic scholarship to go to Clemson University. We're on the beach during the time he was at Clemson, and he says to me, he says, "Jeff, everyone told me to go to school and do good, and I went to school and I did good. And then everyone told me to go to college and do good, and I went to college and did good. And then everyone told me to get a job and do good. I got a job, I'm doing good, but what now? What now?" Our kids want to know why. Why are we teaching them? And I love the fact that I step on campus and you tell me about the vocational and the technical and what you're proud of. Listen, I am pro-education. But do you know that Devin got hired by NASA before he graduated from Clemson? Many of our corporations today are not so much asking, "Hey, where'd you go?" as much as many of them are starting to say, "What did you do?" But yet the expectation from 20 years ago, graduate, go to college, and get a job and stay there and retire. That's not the case. Many of our kids that come to our classes, they will have about 10 to 12 different careers in their lifetime. They're taking a job to get another job, to get another job. The loyalty amongst them is not there, as I don't think the loyalty amongst our corporations is what it was before. Many of our companies are going bankrupt, so what is happening? Our kids are going to start having to figure it out. Many of our kids are going to get into the trade industry, which I think in 10 years, I think that's the money, the opportunity. But many of our parents, oh, my kid's too good for that. No, really, your kid probably isn't. You just think your kid... I was on the campus of Purdue University. They have a building employed by nobody specific to just Amazon. Computers, machines, that's it. You know, I'll ask kids, how many of you in this room would admit that you're probably a little bit lazy? I'll have kids falling out of their chairs, raising their hands. And then I'll ask them this, how many of you, maybe just 15 minutes a day, read on your own outside of school? I might have 10%. And so we have these devices that have been given to the kids, and they spend all these hours. Here's my book, Teen Suicide, the why behind today's suicide epidemic, talks about the more we're on our device, the more of a negative effect it's having on our overall well-being. Whereas if we put the phone down and we get more involved, sleep, nutrition, get more involved, the better this is having on our emotional, mental well-being. Here's why. The more involved you are, coping skills, problem-solving skills, self-esteem, being a part of something bigger. And that's what we need to encourage. I wish, because parents aren't doing it, I wish schools would say, no phones. But you can't. And I'll tell you why you can't. Because they're parents. The parents have to be in connection with our kids. Why? I remember growing up, it's like you'd say to my dad, hey, where's Jeff? My dad would look at you like you're stupid. He'd be like, school. Probably thinking to himself he's with people that are better influential than I am. He'll be home sometime tonight. But now all of a sudden it's like your child forgets their lunch. How is it that you have nothing better to do than stop everything to rush out to get your kid lunch? Well, Jeff, I can't let my kids starve. Your kid won't. I've researched it. Your child can go 8 days on just water without dying. So are we helping our children by enabling them? Or are we hurting our children by enabling them? I think as teachers, I ask this question, where have we become over the past 10 or 20 years? Are we being a little bit easier because we don't want to hurt their feelings, or are we still like really pushing them? Let's not lower the bar. I think we need to be encouraging and supportive. I'm sorry to say, yes, as teachers, we have to do more with less. I'm also sad to say this. The teaching profession is hurting. In Pennsylvania 3 years ago, we gave 18,000 teacher certifications. Last year, we gave 6,000. I think being a teacher is one of the greatest careers, jobs one can have. But I want you every day to wake up and be appreciative of this opportunity. I don't really want to go into all the signs and symptoms as much as I just want to say this. When you have a child and you notice red flags, Jeff, what are the red flags? When your heart beats and you think, that's the red flag. Well, Jeff, what do I do? Do something. Well, Jeff, I don't know what to say. I mean, if I say something, I might be giving the child an idea. Listen, if you're thinking about saying something, the child has already thought about it. I would rather you say something than not say something. You're the teacher. I'd rather my kid with many of you, all of you, than with some parents or grandparents out there. I want you to not worry about having to say the right thing, but your intention of being a caring, empathetic, charismatic adult. That you're building a relationship, you want to know where their heart is. That is what is important. That relationship, now you know something. We go to the guidance counselor, our mental health professionals. Let them do the work. But you, folks, who's more important in a child's life? The teacher or our guidance mental health professionals? You. You know who's more important than you? Their friends. And if we can create this, this culture of you see something, you say something, you know something, you do something. Sometimes it's just like saying something that opens them up to saying, yeah, I didn't really know how, I'm afraid to, I didn't know what to say, many of our kids don't even know where to start. They don't know what to say. They don't even know how to explain what they're feeling. But we know how to get them to open up. Sometimes all we do is just start off with, how's your heart? It's okay to talk about this. When I came in before you were here, there's like 6 of us talking, and one of the staff members was talking about their story. And I was so thankful to recognize that as we were talking, the volume didn't come down. Have you ever noticed when we talk about suicide or mental health, we start to get quiet? Because we don't want people to hear what we're talking about. You ever notice that when someone has Xanax or Klonopin, it's like, oh, you have one, this guy's too loud, I need one too. To get through this day, I need one. You got one? Oh, I got one. And like 6 of you are like, I need one. And all of a sudden, it's like, it's okay to take medication. But when someone says, oh, I have to go, I have a doctor's appointment. Or someone even has the courage to say, I have therapy at 5 o'clock, I have to go early. And then all of a sudden, it's like, do you know she's in therapy? She's in therapy. Why is she in therapy? Did you know? Something must be wrong, I wonder. Shouldn't the person that's going to therapy be supported and applauded versus the people that are looking to the Xanax and the Klonopin? You see, the medication is like a Band-Aid. It just says, okay, I'm okay right now. But the therapy is something that teaches you and gives you tools to deal, to problem solve, to understand. But the stigma will only change when we become comfortable talking and being non-judgmental. I didn't realize in my life that it wasn't so much the ADD and the learning differences as much as it was I probably was not mentally healthy. At 22 years old, I had my second child. At 22 years old, I lost everything. And I still didn't learn. I'm going to share something with you. You're going to judge me. And ladies and gentlemen, that's okay, because nobody has judged me more than I have judged myself. I hate myself for what I'm about to share with you. Matter of fact, I just started sharing this probably back in May. I want to share with you what happened. I'm in Alabama, 7:30 in the morning. I'm on my way to a school. My ex-wife, Marcia, called me a relationship. Her brother's still my accountant. I love her dearly. I always will. The phone rings, driving. She says, hey, Jeff. Hey, Marcia, what's up? She says, Jeff, I wanted to be the first one to tell you. I know you're about to hear about it. I said, Marcia, what? She says, this morning, John's her significant other. Since we got divorced, 50 years old, firefighter, love the guy, better man than me. She said, this morning, John died in his sleep. He didn't wake up. You ever feel like sometimes you just can't get a break? And sometimes we want to avoid it. Our kids are used to avoiding it. But that's part of the thing. You can't avoid life. You can't avoid our problems. You can't avoid your emotions. And when you can stand up and face the mountain and say, well, the difficult takes time. The impossible takes a little bit longer. And so I always try and I pull over the side. And I said to Marsha, you know, the reality is when you know someone is hurting, mental health professionals are the worst because mental health professionals think, well, I should know what to say to fix it. You can't fix it. The best thing you can say to someone that is in pain or suffering is simply this: I'm sorry. And just shut up. I sat there on the phone and I didn't want to go speak. What is your name?
Jill.
Jim?
Jill.
Jill. That's a nice name. Are you listening? Thank you. Part of that expectation, appreciation. When I go to a school and I ask kids, are you listening? And I shake their hand, yeah, I'm a fat, bald guy, 48 years old. I still get to work with young people. And you inspire them and you're listening, thank you. And I remember I wanted to cancel that school. And I thought, they've been on my calendar for a year and a half waiting for me to come. I can't just, but I didn't want to go. And I thought to myself, you know what? After I speak, I'll go to Atlanta, I'll get on a plane, I'll go up to Boston, I'll spend the weekend with Marsha and her friends and just be there. And I thought, you know what? Maybe there'll be a Jill listening. And I went and delivered probably one of the most present talks of my life. And I shared with them what I'm about to share with you. And they would have understood if I had called and said I couldn't do it. And then after I went up, I spent the whole weekend with Marsha and her friends, and I just sat there and I'm sorry, and I just thought my presence can help their heart. And so what I'm about to tell you, you're going to judge me, and that's okay. But me sharing the story makes me feel I've come so far in my growth as a man that I'm not afraid to be judged anymore. That's a good place to be. When Marsha got out of the hospital after having a full hysterectomy, a very serious procedure for women, on the morning that I brought her home and I brought her up to bed, she was mandated by the doctors to spend 30 days on bed rest. No cooking, no working, no exercise, no cleaning, nothing. 30 days on bed rest. On the day I brought her home, that's the day I walked out on her. I'm sorry. I don't know if you heard what I heard. As I shared that with you, there was a over on that side. One of the things I appreciate in being present is that I heard that. And I thank you for that. Jill, have you ever said something you wish you didn't say? You ever done something you wish you didn't do? Me too. I think we all have. But yet I've come to realize that we spend so much time looking and judging people, holding them to a standard that is greater than the standard that we hold ourselves to. Why? Because I've also come to realize that it's easier for us to look at the imperfections of others because we're not ready to fix the imperfections that we should be addressing. I want to share with you more of the story so that you have an understanding of maybe why. And it doesn't make the why okay. It doesn't make any of this okay. What I did was wrong. The person I was committed to for sickness or in health or death, the person that was my number one, at the time that she needed me the most, I walked out. Not too long ago, someone in the audience yelled, "Why?" I don't know. Maybe I may have thought I was healthy, and I wasn't healthy as maybe I thought I was. And you're not the people I need to apologize to. I've apologized to her hundreds of times. I've asked for forgiveness. But you know who sometimes the hardest person is to forgive? We don't forgive people for them. But we choose to forgive people for ourselves. And to forgive yourself and to learn, to grow from it is a beautiful thing. Folks, I was abused as a child. Do you know the 17 years that I was married to Marcia and the 17 years that I was married, do you know that she has never seen me speak? My parents are both alcoholics. My father didn't get sober until 3 years ago. At 73 years old, my father finally got sober. You know who my hero is? My father. Yet, my father has still never told me he's proud of me. And that's okay. It's okay because, ladies and gentlemen, you only know what you know. And therefore, we can only do what we have chosen to learn. And so I want to invite you to be who we tell our kids to be. You want your kids to have a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. If they have a fixed mindset, their potential is capped because they're like, "I know," and they're pushing away the messengers. We want them to have a growth mindset, to be present, to engage every day, to learn something every day. And so what I want to challenge you is I could sit here with the flip chart and overhead and handouts. I can talk about suicide prevention all day long, and it's good for adults. But teen suicide, a whole different ball game. They don't care about your title, they care about the testimony. They don't care what you know, they care that you care. And I want to challenge you to maybe Google a little bit about their mental health, the anxiety, the stress, their social isolation, the relationship between the smartphone, the internet, and who they are personally. And if you can Google it, there's so much more you can understand. Well, what are the signs and symptoms? No. What are the red flags? Do I have the courage to say something? That, I think, is what is most important. And so when I show up every day and I've got the growth mindset, not the fixed mindset, when we are wanting to learn, but as much as we expect that, we have to be willing to want to learn too. Relationships. I've come to learn to love the time I get to spend with people that have walked before me. Their wisdom, their experience. They say smart people learn from their mistakes, but smarter people learn from the mistakes of others. Marcia, my wife's grandpa, his name was Mr. Ken. And he dropped out of school in the 8th grade and never had to go to the Second World War because he started a business and provided food for the community. He ended up owning shopping centers, mobile home parks, gas stations, car dealerships. The man, absolutely amazing. But one of the most proud moments you'll ever have, and many of you have had this, is when you and your wife or husband, partner, when you buy your first house and you say, "Why don't we have Thanksgiving at our house?" I'll never forget that day. Marcia and I, why don't we have the family here? Remember, Grandpa shows up in his Cadillac. He had 11 of them. Not at the same time. I was always raised to be a gentleman, so I remember walking out to the driveway, and I greet him, Grandpa, I'm so glad you're here. Come on in, and I help him out of the car and shut the door, and we're walking in the house. An hour and a half later, we get to the dining room. And I sit him down, I said, Grandpa, why don't you sit here at the head of the table? And he was 94. No, the man in the house sits at the head of the table. I'll sit right here. No, Grandpa, I want you to sit right there. But Grandpa, I'm going to sit right next to you. I'll never forget that Thanksgiving. I talked earlier about the kids and being lazy, but yet they don't read. If our kids just 15 minutes a day, in 1 year, they've read 18 books. The average person reads less than 1/10 of one book in 1 year. See, I think not just education in the classroom and the walls, but education through, listen, take the phone instead of all the social media. Education is basically free. You've got like YouTube and Google. You know, one thing I've learned this summer, I had the best summer in the world. Part of my self-care, I learned photography. I failed photography in high school. They start talking about f-stop and stuff, and I was, what the heck? Don't curse at me. And with YouTube, it's like you learn about f-stop and ISO and aperture. What the heck? And you ask more questions. I love photography now. I learned videos. I started woodworking. I don't do this stuff. I pay people. But then I've got this Jeep in November, like Thanksgiving. I redid my whole Jeep because my friend inspired me. He said, Jeff, it's lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So on YouTube, I did the whole Jeep. I bought all woodworking equipment. I'm making boxes. Boxes. You take a 2x4 with another 2x4 and another. I walk back there, you got woodworking equipment. I'm like, I want to play. I'm making boxes. And some people are like, Jeff, it's a box. To me, it's more than a box because I was always in numbers. I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to meet these. Now all of a sudden, I've just learned to show up and do the best you can. And as a result of just showing up and doing the best I can, I've come to learn that so much anxiety and stress has been alleviated. I'm making boxes. You know what? I'm starting to make cutting boards. And I thought I'll make cutting boards you might even get one. You brought me in, I'll make you a cutting board and say, I did that. Okay, whatever. You ever read the book Tuesdays with Maury?
Yes.
Thank you, one person. I had a Tuesdays with Maury experience with my wife's grandpa. I'm sitting there and I thought to myself, I want to spend more time with him. And he only lived 2 miles away. And so every day that I was home, I made the decision that when I wake up, I'll go to the gym, and after the gym, I'll go visit Grandpa. He'll probably be ready then. And I remember driving up in the driveway and walking up the patio. You have grandparents, my 97-year-old grandmother I just lost about 3 weeks ago. You know, it was one of the most incredible honors I've ever been given. The family asked me if I would do the eulogy. Unbelievable. I don't have any grandparents left. You know why grandchildren and grandparents have such a great relationship? I'll tell you why. Because in between the grandchild and the grandparent, there's a common enemy. I remember walking up the patio and Grandpa was always sitting in his chair. I could see him sitting in his chair and he had this bay window that overlooked all of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I remember my ego would walk up thinking, Grandpa's waiting for me. He wasn't waiting for me. But I've come to realize at 94, 95, 96, 97 years old, you don't go far. You wake up from your bedroom, you go to the bathroom, you come back to the bedroom, you go to your chair. You go to the chair, to the bathroom, to the chair, to the bedroom, to the bathroom, to the chair, to the bathroom. Sometimes you go to the bathroom in your chair. I find it kind of funny that we go through life trying to figure things out, worrying about people's opinions and being judged. And it's inappropriate to pee in your pants when you're young, but when you reach a certain age, it's kind of funny. And I remember when you'd walk in the house, you had to shake his hand. I met a couple kids this summer at this camp, and a couple of them said they've never been taught how to shake someone's hand. I met a girl this summer, Michaela, Pennsylvania. So in order to go to this Pennsylvania Free Enterprise Week, you have to make an application. She did not love this girl, spent 4 weeks with her. She did not know how to address an envelope and put a stamp on it. So on the day the application was due, she drove 4 hours from south of Pittsburgh to Erie, Pennsylvania, to the headquarters of PFEW offices to hand deliver it, to drive 4 hours back home. I said to her, Michaela, why didn't you just ask someone? She said she didn't want to acknowledge that she didn't know. I remember last time I met a girl after a failed suicide attempt. I said, why didn't you ask for help? Her answer was, nobody asked me. Well, how do we ask you if we don't know that you need help? I walked in the house and had to be careful not to scare him. He was hard of hearing, and I didn't want him to fall over and die and me be responsible. But Grandpa would always get up out of his chair and he would stand up. He'd say, shake my hand. We used to make buying decisions about the handshake. Won't you sit down? I never sat down till he invited me to do so. I remember one day my mother-in-law, she had Parkinson's disease, and she lived with us. I come home one day and she says to me, she says, are you going to visit Grandpa today? I says, yeah, I'm going to be going shortly. I says, why? I'm not supposed to tell you, but while you were away, he bought you a present. I don't know, what did he buy me? He loves your visits, and so he thought that he would go and buy a chair like his chair because he thinks that every man should have their own chair, and he wanted to buy you your own chair. But I never realized, I guess I just sat on a stool. And you know how your grandparents, they don't talk much. Sometimes us with our kids, and we just sit there and we like to listen. Because the older you get and the more comfortable we become with ourselves, I've learned the less it is about us and the more it's about them. And so Grandpa, as I would sit down, he wouldn't talk much. And so he would just sit there like, he just loved the company. And so it wasn't awkward. I had to start the conversation. I'd sit down. How you doing, Grandpa? Good? That's good. You look good. You catch the game last night? Yeah. Good game, huh? Red Sox doing good? Yeah. And Grandpa would just sit there like, and I would be like, nice day, huh? The sky is out. Sky is always out. And Grandpa again, but when he talked, you listen. I want to share with you 3 things. We're almost done. I want to share with you 3 things that he taught me that I remember that one day he said, the 3 most powerful words that you can say to someone, I love you. met a high school principal that said to me last year, he said, Jeff, I want to connect more with my kids. I said, then why don't every morning after the announcements you say, and remember, I love you. And so at the end of the year, he ended up writing me and says, you know something, Jeff, if you ask our kids what they remember most about the year, I've come to learn that they're going to tell you that I told them I loved them every day. I'm on my way to that school tomorrow for the next 3 days. They had 3 suicides last year. He says, Jeff, that's one of the most powerful things I've learned to do. I love you. Then his second thing was 3. At 97, everything became 3. Most courageous words that you could say to someone. I'm sorry. That confused me. So, Grandpa, that's 2. You realize it? I remember the day when I arrived. Grandpa wasn't sitting in his chair. When I walked in the house, he had fallen and broken his hip. He was lying on the kitchen floor about 15, 20 feet away. He couldn't get up. And so immediately I rushed over to him and get down on my knees. I said, Grandpa, it's going to be okay. And I called 911. Everybody in the community, Sandwich, Massachusetts, knew Mr. Ken because every day he walked 2 miles from his house down 6A to the Dunkin' Donuts, and he grabbed a jelly donut and a carton of milk. He said hi to the pretty girls, and he walked 2 miles down 6A back home, and he'd sit at the table. He'd have the carton of milk. He'd have the jelly donut, and then he'd go sit in his chair. Everybody knew him. And when I called dispatch, the lady recognized where the call was coming from, and she says to me, she says, I'm sorry, but is this Mr. Ken? I said, yes, ma'am, I'm his grandson. Everybody showed up. Titles, testimonies. Everybody arrived. The Rock, Baywatch, the A-Team, the police, the paramedics, the fire department, the ambulance. It was absolutely incredible. Within minutes, the sirens are flashing. They drove right up in the street, in the driveway. They go rushing in. They bring the cart type thing, and they wheel them out they rush him to the hospital. They do emergency surgery. And so they bring him back to his room at the hospital, and the family comes in that night, and we gather around, and Grandpa's sleeping, and the family, thank gosh, we're walking out to dinner. My wife, Marcia, at the time, she says to me, honey, why don't you stay with Grandpa? And I said to her, I said, why don't you stay with him? He's your grandpa. And I remember she looked at me and she said, everybody in the family thinks that Grandpa would like it best if you were there because you're the closest one to him. I sat there that night with Grandpa. The family went out to dinner. And the glow of the machines lit up the room. I learned how to spell the word love that night. T-I-M-E. Time. And somewhere through the night, his Grandpa just lied there in his bed. Like a baby would squeeze your fingers, he said, number 3. We never have time to do things right. But we always have time to do things over. We just do it right the first time. The next morning, his heart capacity was at less than 10%. So the doctors come in, they call the family. In the family, we sit with Grandpa, and the family decides to go out to dinner again that night. As they're going out to dinner, I looked at my wife, I says, I'm not leaving. And so that night, family went home and slept in their beds. I just sat there and I held his hand and I love you, Grandpa. You can go. I'll take care of the family now. We'll be okay. Thank you, Grandpa. And early that morning, 7 a.m., Grandpa died. And I've never cried. But when my dog died, I haven't stopped crying. And I realized I spent the time with him, with my dog. I think my dog just went under my desk in my office on his terms and his time. And so my question as you go into the year, again, I'm sorry where we've been, but I want my talk to maybe inspire you personally and professionally to be grateful for the little things, to be present every day in the relationship. Because I can share everything to say, oh, we did it. But you know what? This afternoon, we're going to tape my program, and I'm going to make sure all of you have access to the signs and symptoms and everything you need. But I think more importantly, as we go into the year, it's the testimony, it's not the title. It's not about us, it's about them. It's about not being afraid to be vulnerable and transparent. And I leave you simply with this. What is success? What is happiness? I don't know. I think it's different for everybody. But as a man that lives with mental illness, I've come to learn, and I want to share with you my answer to happiness and success. When I leave here today, I'm going to lay my head in the pillow tonight and think about my visit. And like I do every night, I'll ask 3 questions. I challenge you to ask these 3 questions. Number 1, is my life meaningful? What does that mean? Is there meaning to my life? I don't have a dream anymore. Jill, you still listen? Then, Jill, I think my dream has changed to a purpose. I got to be a part of your life. Is my life meaningful? Yeah. And so I don't know what you say. So I bet you some of you in this room, I don't know. Maybe some of you say, yeah. Maybe there's some of you that say, no, I don't know. And so your job is to get deeper. Maybe it's you looking in the mirror and say, what change do I need to make? Now, I'm not advocating for you to make change, but sometimes we have to make change to really find fulfillment. And if my life is my life meaningful? No, then right away, what do I need to do? And I want to focus on what I need to do. Number 2, is my life fulfilling? Is my heart full? You guys trusted in me to come to you on the day before the kids get, oh man. Yeah, my heart's full. And if you say no, then what change do you need to make? You see, sometimes it's not about others. Sometimes we just need to accept the fact that if we just change our attitude, our choices, our own behavior, if we change that, everything else seems to change too. You're not a victim. I want you to be the victor. I don't want you to be bitter and angry over this or over that. I want you to choose to be better. Is my life meaningful? Yes. Is it fulfilling? Yes. Number 3, is my life rewarding? We get to teach. We get to inspire. We get to save lives by relationships. We get to save lives by being present. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you can't say yes to those three questions, then my challenge to you is, what do you need to do? And maybe it's as simple as, who is your circle that you teach and work with that you're okay sharing your story with, that you're listening to their story? It's okay to talk, because the moment we start talking is the very moment that we start to destigmatize mental health. And it's okay to learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That is when we grow. And that is what we have to teach our kids, so that they can grow up and have the coping skills and the problem solving skills, and they will always look back, not as your title, but your testimony. Good. I'm going to stick around. Thank you for letting me be a part of your life. Have an awesome year, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless. Be awesome. Thank you. Just wrapping up a 2-hour talk, 800 teachers, Cabot, Arkansas School District. Today's talk was really about who we are personally, as much as who we are professionally and our impact on young people. It was about suicide. It was about mental health. This is a community that is familiar with loss, not just students, but teachers as well. It was an amazing, absolutely amazing group of teachers and staff members that I got to share my heart with. The bottom line that I want to share with you as a teacher, listen, today's teenagers don't care about research, they don't care about textbooks, they don't care about titles. There's two questions that as a teacher you have to answer every day. Can I trust you, and do you care about me? What's important as a teacher is they understand that we teach young people first and the subject area is second. Your relationship with your kids, the 2x10 rule, you're being present and you're being engaged. I could talk all day about myths, facts. I could talk about signs and symptoms, but I'm going to tell you at the end of the day, it's about the relationship. You touch the heart, the mind will follow. And when kids feel comfortable being able to speak and share, that's when we save lives.